After 2 years of being grounded, air travel is back. The TSA reported passenger volumes could soon exceed those from 2019. But growing travel demand has hit a few pockets of turbulence in the last year, due to lack of staff and increasing bad weather.
We are seeing more intense weather in Florida, and then we are seeing snow in Texas.
In April, thunderstorms in Florida led to airlines delaying more than 9,000 flights and canceling over 3,000. And over Memorial Day weekend, 2,500 flights were canceled throughout the U.S. due to storms in New York, Florida, and the Mid-Atlantic.
We saw last summer in 2021, Spirit Airlines losing about $50 million in revenue because of a spate of delays and cancellations. Southwest, a few months later, had one that cost it about $75 million.
In 2019, the estimated cost of delays in the U.S. for airlines was $8.3 billion, and the cost for passengers was $18 billion. The biggest cause for delays in the U.S. is weather.
The challenging days are those thunderstorms, those pop-up summer thunderstorms and severe weather season, which is between April and September, where we have the bulk of the nation traveling, and that's when we have the most inclement weather.
Florida has seen a travel boom over the pandemic and has been particularly affected by delays and cancellations due to an increase in storms, which are expected to get worse in the future. And even though you may have perfect weather at your departure airport, bad weather in another area can have a cascading effect on the entire country.
We're operating probably right about 5,600 daily departures. It's very complicated when we're managing through multiple hubs throughout the country that all have the opportunity to have different types of weather and different types of potential disruptions.
CNBC went to the Federal Aviation Administration's Air Traffic Control System Command Center in Warrenton, Virginia, to get an inside look at how the FAA deals with increasingly severe weather situations that can delay and cancel flights and cost airlines billions. The National Airspace System, or NAS, is a complex, busy place. The FAA was created in 1958 to oversee it. Today, it manages more than 19,000 airports and 45,000 flights daily.
We control 70% of the world's air traffic. The mission for every air traffic control facility is to ensure that the flying public reaches their destination safely and as efficiently as possible.
All right, good morning, everyone. Looking at the map this morning, we have a cold front off the East Coast, a few storms out there.
Newark, we're keeping an eye on the demand for this afternoon, but we expect the conditions are going to be perfect for secondary arrival runway. Should be able to keep the rates up.
The command center is run 24/7 and is in constant communication with all participants in the airspace, which includes airlines, flight operations, general aviation, the military, and the National Weather Service.
Now, when constraints happen in the NAS, we collaborate with those same entities to solve those issues, be it rocket launches in the airspace, inclement weather, VIP movement, and special events like, say for instance, the Masters. We solve that issue together collaboratively with traffic management initiatives.
All right, good morning, everyone. Looking at the map this morning, we have a low pressure developing over the southern plains with a cold front into Texas. That's going to be our big system today. We're expecting quite a bit of development very close to Dallas this morning, probably block the traffic between Fort Worth and Houston.
The problem is Texas. Right now, we do have Texas in the plan, DFW and Dallas Love. They just put in place the north to DFW, so stuff coming from the Chicago area and the northeast are going to come wrap around to the west side of the weather.
With travel demand coming back in full force, the airspace is as crowded as ever.
Congestion happens every day, so we get what is known as spikes in certain times of the day. Just like anything in rush hour, everyone wants to get to work at a certain time and get home at a certain time. So we meter that traffic out. By that I mean we slow down the problem so the controllers that are working that airspace have a chance to safely maneuver those aircraft through to their destinations.
Okay, special event on the timeline. We do have the Formula One race down in South Florida, and we have enough possible ground stops.
The Florida market is really booming, and as that demand increases, we're bolstering our staffing to ensure that we meet those rising demands in the Florida market. And that's where most of the traffic for leisure is flowing nowadays.
But Florida has seen an increase in storms, leading to thousands of flights being canceled this past April. In recent years, storms have gotten more frequent and severe due to climate variability.
Weather plays a huge factor to any traffic management initiatives that we're implementing. Today is a Texas day, so we have thunderstorms ranging in the Texas market and up into the Memphis market as well.
If you look at overall cancellations, weather and air traffic control issues that drive the bulk of the cancellations that airlines are impacted by. We say air traffic control, it's because of the limitations that weather puts on air traffic control that constrains where aircraft can fly.
Meteorologists play an important role within the air traffic system and have a team on staff at the FAA Control Center.
A huge part of what we do is based upon coordination and collaboration with meteorologists in the airline industry. And so while we here are providing that informative piece, that forecast for a decision maker here, there are meteorologists within the airlines that are doing the same for their stakeholders. And together as part of this enterprise, we're collaborating to make sure that we're on the same page, that we're kind of speaking with one forecast voice.
Here in the U.S., the southern Great Plains have some of the strongest storms on Earth. And while some weather events are more predictable and schedules can be rearranged around them, others must be avoided.
Certainly, as hazards go, you want to avoid a tornado. You don't want to be close to those storms. There's no safe way to fly around a tornado. When you're looking at a winter storm or you're looking at a hurricane, in many instances, you're going to have 2 or 3 days of lead time before that storm's going to impact a congested corridor or a high-impact terminal.
But thunderstorms can be especially tricky to predict ahead of time.
There's some days where you can provide a forecast, you see those thunderstorms coming. There's other times where it's a very fast process to build up and to fall apart. And that is a big challenge, I think, for meteorologists, is you want to get that timing and location of that thunderstorm information right, and they can move those airplanes and keep people safe.
There are roughly 100,000 thunderstorms in the U.S. every year. Thunderstorms can create a few dangerous weather elements like rain, hail, and lightning.
It will fry your components if you get a lightning strike for an aircraft. So we try to avoid those areas. We want to ensure that we go around those and not through those.
Meteorologists at the control center monitor multiple types of radar maps that can identify lightning and the height of storms in relation to the altitudes of aircraft.
The white boxes that you see are denoting the top of the thunderstorm. So if you've got thunderstorms that have their tops around, say, 37 or 38,000 feet, that's at the level that your commercial airliners are flying. And so you don't want to fly through those. You've got to be able to fly around them safely. And see, right now, a lot of these airplanes are moving in and trying to get in through these thunderstorm gaps and get into Fort Worth.
But even if you go around a storm, it can still cause problems.
Around thunderstorms, you're dealing with convectively induced turbulence. And one of the things that can be sinister, if you will, is that it may not necessarily impact aircraft right around the thunderstorm. It may impact aircraft that are 100 or 150 miles away from that thunderstorm as that turbulence propagates out away from the center of the storm.
Unusual weather events have also been happening in different parts of the country.
If you never anticipated having a snowstorm in Atlanta, you don't have the same sorts of snow fighting and de-icing capabilities that you have in Detroit. So on that basis, when you do have a snowstorm in Atlanta, it's a pretty serious problem.
And the first thing, that we are never going to compromise is safety. When you have weather and the impacts that are out there, we can't fly through that, and we're not going to jeopardize the operation in any way, shape, or form.
While the FAA is making sure planes are safely passing through the airspace efficiently, the airlines are the ones dealing with the repercussions of delays, which include weather, but also airport congestion, late arriving passengers and crew, and mechanical issues.
When there's weather events in there, I think most customers are understanding of the fact that there potentially are going to be delays. They're less understanding sometimes about I can't get to my destination. With full flights, I might not be able to get to my destination for a couple of days, which obviously can ruin the experience.
Once we get into delays, we get into internal airline mechanics, where a combination of practical availability of crews and then in some cases contractual limitations or FAA limitations cause the originally scheduled crew members not to be available to fly a flight. And of course, if that's the last flight of the night and there are no further reserves, well, that's it for the day. Unfortunately, those customers are going to be overnighting at an airport.
Okay, we still have Dallas Sullivan for the possible ground stop GDP. We'll keep that in there for now. We'll see how the demand comes up just in case.
When an airport has a ground stop, inbound flights are held at their origin airport until weather or other disruptions ease. There were 939 ground stops in the U.S. in 2021.
One thing that airlines try to be careful about doing is not delaying endlessly. So if they're keeping their crews from getting to their destination, let's say that they're not sure when the flight is going to take off, sometimes what they'll do is just cancel it outright. Get those crews either reassigned to another flight.
And everything at an airline costs an airline by the minute, whether it's a minute of flying time or a minute of fuel burn, crew time, pilots, flight attendants. So every one of these delays incurs a cost. On the revenue side of the equation, having had a bad experience with that airline, a lot of people simply say to themselves or say to their corporate travel manager, don't ever schedule me on airline X again, because I'm not going to be delayed like that ever again.
Airlines like American are trying to yield more control over delays during big weather events using a new tool it created called HEAT, which stands for Hub Efficiency Analytics Tool.
It looks at our aircraft routings. It looks at where the aircraft are coming from. It looks at our crew limitations. It takes into consideration our customers. We have large connecting groups on flights coming in. And we take all this and model it around what we believe the limitations are going to be imposed from the weather. And we can use this tool to allow ourselves to delay through the operation, allow ourselves not to cancel.
HEAT is a simple concept, but incredibly complex when working with up to hundreds of flights impacted by weather. It was rolled out in mid-April and used during a thunderstorm in Dallas. American said HEAT reduced cancellations by 80%, while the number of diversions dropped by 62%, compared to a similar storm in April 2019.
The ops research algorithms that we've developed to be able to manage these, it just wasn't present, 20 years ago. We've gotten a lot better, but we're not satisfied with where we are right now. We're continuing to look to find better ways to manage these situations, because the best science out there isn't going to tell us exactly how it's going to unfold, and we've got to be able to be very nimble and adaptive to the scenario as it plays out.
The contract issues, which a lot of airlines are discussing right now, it's that schedule reliability issue, which is the number one factor for employees. So getting this reliability issue solved has implications which are really in the billions of dollars for a major carrier. It, of course, has billions of dollars of revenue potential as well if you simply do a better job.
It is common for airlines to add time to a flight's schedule to give it some wiggle room for on-time arrival, but that's in perfect conditions.
We build the schedule for a normal day. We don't build schedules anticipating that thunderstorms are going to happen. And that's why, on those days you have delays, because if you have a perfect weather day, everything's arriving early, and then you create complications in the system.
It's estimated delays cost airlines several $billion in additional expenses. Dallas, Newark, and Chicago had the most delays over the past year. Since bigger airports have more operations, it could lead to more chances of delays.
We did have a bird strike coming out of Newark. They were short-term holding while they worked through that. Everything should be good now.
And every now and then, there's the occasional odd delay.
We've had people streaking on the runway. Nothing really too strange. We've seen it all.
And it's not just passenger planes that are impacted, but cargo planes too.
Okay, anybody else with concerns about the route structure? FedEx. Yeah, FedEx.
With flight disruptions expected this summer and air travel set to hit new records, the FAA and airlines have a tough job ahead of them.
Airlines are trying to capitalize on every bit of demand that is out there. In some cases, they know that they're not going to be able to handle it. So we've seen them cut their capacity and kind of admit that maybe they had sold more flights or more seats than they were able to handle. It has been extremely stormy in some parts of the US, and airlines are trying to build in a little bit of wiggle room by cutting that capacity.
We've took out some of the planned growth that we had into the summer. We're going to keep essentially our current level of operations intact throughout the summer. We're not going to grow at all, because the reliability of the product that we're providing the customer is more important than, again, chasing that last dollar of revenue.
I think folks are understanding of weather events and the impact they have, but the day after and 2 days after, they struggle a bit with why is that still impacting you? And that's what we've spent a lot of time trying to understand, how we can better manage those events so that when the storm or the storm event is over, we can recover really quickly and get ourselves back to normal operations.
One thing passengers can do, if it's possible, is to be flexible and to be patient and to know that this is a little bit of a tricky summer. They are going to probably encounter things like weather here and there that could delay their flights. It's really important also to know your rights. If an airline cancels your flight, you are entitled to a cash refund. Sometimes airlines will offer you a voucher or a credit, but you are entitled to a refund. And the Department of Transportation lists all of passengers' rights on its website.
It's a very dynamic system, and we work very, very hard to ensure that you are not delayed. But when delays happen, be patient with us and understand that we are doing it for the safety and for you to make sure that you get to your destination safe and that you have a positive flying experience.